What's going on, YouTube? So when the Envista came out last year, it certainly made waves, especially in the Buick lineup.
It's now the brand's best-selling model, and now for 2025, we have even more value this year.
So is this the best, affordable, and stylish crossover to buy? Well, let's go ahead and find out. Alright, so let's begin things under the hood as always. So what you'll find is just one engine option. It's a 1.2 liter turbocharged 3-cylinder engine. It makes 137 horsepower and is paired to a 6-speed automatic transmission. And as far as your combined fuel economy, it comes in at 30 mpg.
Now, of course, we can't wait to take this Envista out on the road to show you what it's like behind the wheel. We'll also be getting things like our sound level reading to see how quiet this Buick is. After that, we'll discuss resale and reliability.
But let's go ahead and close up the hood, because a big reason you might buy this Envista is that it's surprisingly stylish. So this vehicle is a subcompact crossover, and many of the vehicles in this segment have a tendency to not have much style going on. That is not the case with the Envista, like I was saying. As you can see, it really has a good look, especially starting up here in the front. So this has the brand's latest design language with their new grille across the front. It's going to be slightly different depending on which trim you choose. We have the loaded Avenir model, which gives you this special finish across the front, as well as this accent down here on the bottom. Now, as far as our lighting is concerned, you have the new split design. So the top part will be our daytime running light and turn signal indicator. It is LED. And then the headlights themselves are also LED. It's a projector LED for both your low and high beam. Now, as we walk around to the back, this is where the style factor really ramps up.
Yeah, I think this is a very stylish, affordable crossover. Normally these coupe SUV things are very expensive, so I like that you're going to get some of that design here on the Envista. Now, we don't have a wiper because the glass is sloped to a certain degree, and then as far as other design elements, let's check out our taillights. Now, you might have thought that these are going to be your main taillight cluster. That's actually not true. This is just the LED accent. It also serves as your reverse light. Most of your brake light and turn signal functions will be down here in this area. It's going to be incandescent for all of the taillight elements besides for just the accenting. You're also going to get a clear lens here on the Avenir. And then as we drop down to this lower fascia, this is going to be mostly body color. We also have some chrome going on to give you that premium Buick look. No exposed exhaust outlets, and towing is not recommended.
Moving on to the wheels, you get an extra inch for each trim level. You go up beginning at 17 inches. This is the 19-inch alloy on the top end Avenir. As you can see, you've got that special nickel finish with the multi-spoke design. The wheel arches are body color. We have Avenir branding right through there. And in terms of our mirrors, we have blind spot monitoring and heating. One of the things I'm surprised to see is the fact that we have available auto dimming here on the Avenir.
Now, we already mentioned that we have that really cool sloping design into the rear, and overall vehicle length is actually quite big. It's 182.6 inches, which means it's about 4 inches longer than its platform mate, the Chevy Trax. And because of all that extra length, we'll see how that translates to interior space just a little bit later on. Now, as far as your safety systems are concerned, we do have 3 out of 4 of those as standard equipment on every single Envista. Additionally, optional on every single model is adaptive cruise control as well if you want that feature. But guys, you'll be surprised at what's on the inside. But first,
if you're new here, we're brothers and we've been reviewing cars since we were 12
and 16. We may be young, but we love cars.
And we'd love for you to subscribe to be a part of our Car Confections family. Let's learn a lot, have some fun with all the latest cars.
All right, now let's go ahead and check out the interior. First, we'll take a quick look at the key fob. This does have a special Buick key fob. It's different than the rest of the General Motors brands. You have smart entry, and new for 2025, remote start is standard on all 3 trim levels. Now, getting inside the vehicle, there's no sensor behind the handle, so just press the silver button. That will unlock the door. And then taking a look inside the interior, after I flip those headlights off, you'll see a very nice and surprisingly premium cabin considering the price point. But before we get into all the individual details of what you get for the money, let's talk about the seats. So here on the Avenir trim level, this is the one that's going to get real leather seats. You've got a couple different choices you can go for. This is the gray finish, as you can tell. We have the Avenir branding up there in the headrest. You've got the special stitching details that run down the back. And overall, it looks very premium with this model. The seat adjustments as well are going to be 8-way power with 2-way lumbar support. And then the lower trims will come with leatherette seats or a cloth and leatherette on the base model. But let's go ahead and climb inside. Now this is one of the most affordable crossovers in America. Let's check the material quality for the top Avenir though. Over here on our door trim, we've got a kind of rubbery leatherette texture that runs through here. It does have a color contrast stitching detail. You've got a faux aluminum that runs through the center section. It is hard touch along the top though. As we move to the upper dash, all of this will be finished in that same color match leatherette material with stitching details. You have some piano black finish and silver accents around the vent details. And then our lower panels, again with the piano black and the faux aluminum, no pad along the console. And let's go ahead and fire it up with our standard push button start. All right, let's dig in to some individual features. We'll begin with our gauge cluster. Standard on every single version is an 8-inch display. It is, as you can see, a digital cluster with very kind of simplistic graphics, just matching with that overall Buick theme. You'll also notice in the frame that we have rain-sensing wipers on the Avenir. Now, pulling back to the steering wheel, we've got a nice leather-wrapped steering wheel on all but the base model. It's got a flat bottom design, kind of the latest look with the Buick logo. Manual tilt and telescoping, of course. We do also have available steering wheel heating. All right, let's go ahead and check out interior storage now. So if I open up our center console, you'll notice inside we have some stuffed donuts. That's because here at Car Confections, we put stuffed donuts inside of the consoles to check the volume. And even though this on the surface looks pretty small, it actually fits 9 donuts inside because it is relatively deep. Now, in front of that, you have another cubby here. You can stick your keys, something like that. 2 cup holders, and then in the very front, we have a wireless phone charging pad. It's standard on Avenir, available on the other 2 trims. No complicated shifter here, just a nice traditional style. Pull back for drive, press the little toggles there for manual shifting. When we go into reverse, you'll notice a standard backup camera on board. Resolution is decent. You do have active trajectory, and then I've got a good feature to share with you for 2025. That's the fact that we now have standard rear parking sensors, even on the base model. And then behind that, you have an electronic parking brake. Now, as we move on to our climate controls, what you'll see is that we do have automatic climate. It's just a single zone automatic compared to the Encore GX. You can get a dual zone automatic. That's probably not a big deal for most people. If you press that button there, you can also make some additional adjustments to some features such as zones up in the display itself. Next to that, you have 3-stage heated seats. That is standard on the Avenir. Ventilated seats are not available. You don't really expect that in the subcompact segment. Now let's go ahead and move on up to this area. First of all, we will grab that volume knob and take a sample of the 6-speaker sound system all versions get. So overall sound quality of the system is perfectly adequate. Maybe it would be nice to have an available Bose sound system on this Avenir trim level at least, but I think it'll be more than satisfying for most people at this price point. All right, let's dig into the main infotainment system. So what we have on board is an 11-inch display. This is standard across the entire trim lineup. This has kind of a simplified version of what you might find on some of the more high-end Buick products. Nevertheless, it's got the things that most people are looking for right there. Boom. Android Auto and Apple CarPlay. They are wireless, and obviously that gives you access to your Google apps and things that you want to use, like Maps. Up above here, we have our auto-dimming mirror. This is on just the Avenir trim level. And then you also have an available sunroof as an option.
But let's go ahead and dive into the Envista's rear seat. Now, this is probably one of the most impressive spaces about the Envista is just back here. Now, I want to go ahead and mention legroom first. So we're going to have 38.7 inches of legroom and about 37.3 inches of headroom. Now, for this subcompact class, that is really, really impressive figures, guys. That's going to be really about the best that you can get in terms of legroom. The headroom is going to be about an inch less than what you'd get in a Buick Encore GX, but the legroom is several inches more than what you'd get in that more expensive Encore GX. Now, as far as behind roof's 5/8 seating position, we're sitting at a very solid 8 inches of additional knee room, and my feet can slide up underneath of the seat. So, in summary, you're definitely going to be really comfortable back here unless you're abnormally tall and your head is going to be scraping the roof. Now, as far as the seats themselves, they do not recline. Now, we do also have a center armrest with 2 cup holders inside. Additionally, we have 2 USB ports. It's a Type-C and a Type-A variety. We have a little storage cubby, but you're not going to find any vents or anything like that in the Envista. Now, if you look over at the door trim, one of the, kind of areas that they had to cost cut a little bit was the door trim. So we have a hard touch on pretty much all of the door trim, besides for the armrest portion. That's going to be padded. And then we also have quite a lot of door storage. Now let's go ahead and dive into the cargo area. One of the great things about the Avenir is that we do actually have a power tailgate. That's pretty rare for this segment. And as far as space is concerned, it's going to be about 21 cubic feet of space behind the second row of seats. If we fold those seats down, which you can easily do by just grabbing this little lever right there, you're going to have a maximum of 42 cubic feet. Now, if you were curious as to where the sloping roof design starts to cost you things, well, that's going to be in your cargo space. It's actually about 12 cubic feet less as a maximum than the related Chevy Trax. So do keep that in mind. You're not going to have quite as much cargo space, but I think it's going to be pretty much fine for most buyers. Now, it's a Car Confections review after all, so let's get our cargo length, width, and height figures. As far as cargo length, this is going to be pretty impressive. 72 inches of length for this Envista. From behind the second row of seats, we're looking at 36 inches of length. As far as the cargo opening, that's going to be about 36 inches wide. And cargo height, that's going to only be about 27 inches. So it's going to be shorter than most SUVs, and it's going to get even lower down in this area. Now, underneath of the floor, we do have a spare tire. Well, guys, here we are behind the wheel of the Buick Envista. In this test drive, we're going to be discussing quite a few different things, as you can see on the screen right now. We'll also be getting things like our signature sound level reading. But first of all, we want to go ahead and start by giving you a hard acceleration so you can see what the powertrain is all about.
So there's a little bit of an acceleration. So as far as what we have on board, like we talked about at the spec dump, we got a 1.2 liter turbocharged 3-cylinder engine, and that has 137 horsepower. Now, as far as how this accelerates, well, we'll say the same thing as what we've said in our past reviews of the previous model year of the Envista as well as the Chevy Trax. It is not too bad at all. Overall, gets up and goes pretty decently. Obviously, it's not going to knock your socks off or anything like that, but I do think it has the impression when you see how small the liters are.
Yeah.
You're thinking, oh my gosh, there's no way that this can even get out of its own way, but
It's really not that bad, and part of the reason why is because we have 162 pound-feet of torque, which is a lot of torque for this segment of vehicle. And you know, in the real world, we've actually lived with the Envista for a week. We've lived with the Trax for a week, so we've, you know, experienced this powertrain quite a lot, and I think you're actually going to be pleasantly surprised. Like Drew said, I think the initial numbers kind of sound bad, but in real world, it actually is a lot more impressive than you'd think.
So I punched it a little bit there so we can talk about the other element of the powertrain, and that is a 6-speed automatic transmission. So, you know, obviously that is kind of a conventional it is a conventional transmission, but it stands out in the segment because most of the competition uses a continuously variable transmission. Overall performance of this is fine as well. Obviously, it is going to be down a couple gears, you know, versus an 8-speed automatic, but the shifting is nice and smooth. And since this does, you know, have pretty good torque figures, you don't really feel like you're wanting for power.
Yeah, now, the one thing that may be a little disappointing to you is the fact that this Envista is only available with front-wheel drive. So do keep that in mind. It is not going to have an all-wheel drive option. Now, Buick does have an answer to that. If you would rather have all-wheel drive, you can get the Encore GX. They'll happily sell you that model, but this Envista will be front-wheel drive exclusive. All right. And as we accelerate up to around 55 miles per hour, I think now is a good time for us to go ahead and get our sound level reading. You know, expect out of a Buick to have pretty good cabin insulation. So let's go ahead and see if that's true. I'm going to go ahead and put it on fan speed 1. We're going 55. .3 decibels is the figure that we have settled in at for this Buick Envista Avenir. Now, we don't have to sit here and guess how it compares to other vehicles that we've tested in this segment. We can go to carconfections.com/sound level readings and see all the vehicles that we've tested. And indeed, that does actually place this as one of the quietest subcompact vehicles that we have tested out in this segment. Really, the only vehicle that has beat this sound level reading would be the Kia Soul and the Chevy Trailblazer. So a very good figure here in the Buick Envista. Really, this is a segment where most of the options are pretty extremely loud. So I'm happy to see that they've kind of added that Buick characteristic of making it nice and quiet inside of this cabin. And let me also go ahead and discuss ride quality for the Envista. Now, at least up here in the front of the vehicle, I have to say the ride quality is pretty good. Like we said, we've spent several weeks with this vehicle in the past, and I honestly have no complaints. The seats are comfortable. The suspension does a really good job of soaking up the bumps, especially for this segment. Now, it's not going to ride like a Mercedes S-Class or anything. You wouldn't expect it to, but I think it's very compliant for this segment. Also, here on the Avenir, we have a special Watts Link suspension that is included only on this top trim level. Now let's take a second to also discuss fuel economy. Now, this vehicle has always been pretty efficient, and we're going to keep that efficiency for 2025. You're sitting at 30 mpg for the vast majority of the time. However, there has been a change this year that allows you to use E85 fuel if you prefer that. I do believe that's quite a bit of a cheaper option to fuel the vehicle. However, do be aware that that will reduce your fuel economy down. You're not going to get 30 mpg if you're using E85. Instead, you will be getting 22 mpg.
Now, one of the things I like about this Envista is that in terms of your handling, it does have a pretty spry feel. It's overall a pretty small crossover. The steering has a good weight to it. Obviously, it's not heavy, but it is nice and responsive, and this has a relatively agile feel overall.
Yeah. And let's go ahead and get into our Car Confections Slam Dunk and Airball. Drew, why don't you go ahead and kick us off with the Slam Dunk?
So for the Slam Dunk, it's going to have to be value. Obviously, this vehicle just gives you a lot. It gives you even a little bit more for 2025 than it did last year, and that just just super impressive in the overall scope of how expensive vehicles have gotten these days.
Yeah. On the airball side of things, there's a couple different options on this, but I think the biggest thing for most consumers is the fact that you don't have an available all-wheel drive system. I know, at least if you fall in my boat, I really like the way this Envista looks. I think it looks better than the Encore GX, so I would prefer to buy this over that model, but if you're needing all-wheel drive, that's just not going to be an option for you. And lastly, as far as your warranty is concerned, you do have Buick Signature Warranty, which is a 3-year 36 basic, 5-year 60,000 mile powertrain. And now let's go ahead and discuss pricing for this Envista. Now, this is a very affordable vehicle. That's one of the strongest characteristics about this model. And as a matter of fact, let's see how much it starts at for 2025. We started at just under $23,000 for the preferred model. If you move up to the Avenir, that's going to be $28,600. As you can see here on this model, we have the 25 Envista Avenir. That's our base price. Once we add in the optional paint, a couple other option packages as well, plus a $1,095 destination, we're sitting at $32,135, which I think is an incredible value for this segment. Now, I also want to point out seems to be a popular comment that we get if this vehicle is made in China. It's actually assembled in Korea. Now, if you're looking to buy a Buick Envista or any new vehicle, we would encourage you to go to carconfections.com/newcarquotes. Now, the reason you do that is because we have a tool on our website that will connect you with local car dealers in your area to get you the best price. It's also going to give you access to invoice pricing information, which is a great tool for dealership negotiation. If you'd like to take advantage of that, a link is provided in our video description, and we also have a pinned comment at the top of this video. But buying a car is about more than just the original MSRP, so let's dive into resale and reliability. So let's start out by talking about resale value. As an economics graduate myself, Drew and I took the time to develop what we think is a good estimate for this Buick Envista's potential resale value. We estimate that after 5 years and 60,000 miles, it'll be worth around 46.1% of original MSRP, and after 10 years and 120,000 miles, 17.1%. Now, it's worth noting that is slightly below industry average, but due to the low MSRP of this vehicle, I actually would expect that resale value percentage to be higher than the Buick brand as a whole.
Now, we've also done the same for reliability by developing the Combined Reliability Index. This takes into account several studies from trustworthy sources and combines them in a way that gives you a more holistic picture. In this regard, Buick is actually in the top 5 brands for reliability.
Now, if you'd like to learn more about our resale and reliability data, as well as our methodology, be sure to go to carconfections.com/resale and carconfections.com/reliability. Buying a new vehicle is a very big decision, so you want to make sure you're making a smart purchase, especially if you're cross-shopping between different vehicle brands. And guys, that's going to be where we leave off on this in-depth review of the 2025 Buick Envista. If you enjoyed watching this video or found it helpful in your purchasing decisions, which we hope you did, we'd really appreciate it if you hit that subscribe button down below. By subscribing, you're going to get the latest car reviews, such as this 25 Envista, and you're also going to be a part of our Car Confections family. I promise you won't want to miss out because we have a lot of fun and we do a lot of really cool cars. If you're already part of our family, thank you so much for your continued support, and we'll catch you next time as we sample more of the latest automotive delicacies.